just watched the Senate hearing on cryptocurrency, and I thought it was interesting in that, boy, is it a love fest. I mean, all the government officials love innovation. This is an exciting technology. They don't want to interfere. And, you know, everybody is trying, not just at this hearing, but I've seen other events that I've been to. Everybody wants to abide by the existing regulations that we have, and we're all happy and don't worry about it. And that's great. I'm glad we all have a positive attitude, but I gotta say, you know, when the market's only a few hundred billion large, it's easier to say that. When the numbers start getting in the trillions, taxes start not being collected, and the traditional flows of money are being disrupted in a way that people feel it, I think that the love fest may subside, because the reality is we have a set of regulations. I mean, so the securities regulations written in the 1930s for a different asset class. Now, I'm not saying they can't be adapted, and I'm sure they will, if not rewritten. But as of today, we have the old ones, and this new crypto asset class doesn't fit in. I mean, everybody's trying to kind of, it's like trying to fit some strange off-shaped object into a square box, and it's like not fitting, and well, maybe we turn it around, maybe it'll fit this way, maybe if we fold it, we can get it in, and it just doesn't fit in. And I don't think it's going to completely fit in. And it's great that we're all trying right now, but eventually the knives may come out. And I don't mean that literally, I mean, but this love fest might get a little tense, because the problem is, I mean, so in a perfect world, which we do not live in a perfect world, the U.S. government would not be in debt, right? And we would say, hey, this is an exciting new technology, fabulous. You know what? Let's let it go. Tax-free zone. Do whatever you want for 5 years, you know, or so. And then we'll see what's going on. Then we'll figure it out. And then we'll build new systems and new laws, new regulations regarding taxes and investments and everything. And 10 years from now, we'll have an amazing new system. That would be the way to handle it, right? But we can't do that. We have trillions in debt that need to be paid, and the people in power are supported by this structure. And they're well-meaning people too. They don't want to, you know, they have their self-interest of maintaining their money, but it's also just, you know, they're trying to do good. And it's just, I think the love fest might weaken a little bit when this market gets bigger. And so it's sort of, when I look at it, sort of like simply, it's just, we need an upgrade. You know, the way taxes, our tax system was built, not only based on, you know, how we're going to collect money, but the computer systems to support and track it. That guy's shaking it. Our tax system is not an honor code. If I sell a stock, no matter what broker I'm at, I get a 1099 at the end of the year with my capital gains. You know, listen, I'm an honest guy. I pay my taxes, but I don't have to rely on the honor code. They send me a 1099. If you work in a company, everything is reported, all your taxes. Like, the computer systems are built. The tax system is not on an honor code. So when we go to cryptocurrency, like right now, trading in exchanges, we're based on the honor code. Okay. So first of all, there's obvious problems with relying everyone to honestly report their taxes. But even if you are that honest guy, good luck when you put in money into Bitcoin, and then you trade it into Ethereum, and then you trade that into some EC20 token. You did that over a few days, and what was the value compared to the US dollar of each trade, you know, and it was bought in different lots at different prices, and it's, you know, good luck getting all that and knowing your cost basis. Meanwhile, the Bitcoin, you know, okay. Anyways, most of you who, if anybody's bought cryptocurrency, you know how creating your own 1099 is not going to be easy. So all these systems have to be rewritten. And we don't have the luxury of time. And it's not even that, I think, when I say, well, the love fest will end. It's just kind of like people are going to start sweating when taxes are not showing up, and when, ICOs, people are just going offshore, and there's other, people are raising money in all these different ways that aren't going through the proper channels. And I'll tell you, ICOs is interesting. It's almost a whole nother video. I'm not gonna, let's see how this goes. I've only been 5 minutes. Maybe I'll talk about ICOs a little more at the end, but let's see what else I have here. And one thing that I thought was a little backwards in the hearing, it's funny because for years, we've known, those of us have followed Bitcoin for a while, have known that Bitcoin is open and traceable. That's how they caught the guy who started Silk Road and other criminals. Bitcoin is really traceable, but it was always, in government, they always talked about it as, oh, it's bad, it's for criminals because it's anonymous. Well, it's not. It's traceable. And finally, now at this hearing, many mentions of how it's wonderful because Bitcoin, it's traceable and open. Problem is, this Lightning Network on Bitcoin may be turned on soon, and that brings privacy to Bitcoin. And nobody was talking about the fact that people being attacked by a seagull. Nobody's talking about how the fact that Bitcoin is traceable may go away. Or how will it go away? I mean, who knows? The Lightning Network needs to evolve over time, but it looks like privacy is coming. And obviously, there's nothing wrong with having privacy, but we need to develop tax systems that are not based on the honor code. And if certain transactions that are currently taxed are going to be able to be purchased with privacy, and we have to go to the honor code, that's another thing that has to be rewritten. So it gets tricky. And the other thing that I find interesting, so the other way that I think, sorry, talking in circles. We take for granted this approach. So I remember when the internet started, there was Congress passed multiple laws. I think 3 times they passed a law that where they wanted to control or have some control or monitoring ability of all information so that they could root out the bad actors. Hate speech, child porn, they wanted a way where they could control the network in order to root out the minority of bad actors. And it got shot down by the courts, and finally the Supreme Court said, you can't try to control all speech and infringe on speech rights of adults in order to just protect or or stop a small minority. Something like that. I'm not a Supreme Court justice, and I searched for that quote because I remember when the ruling came down, I was like, wow, I couldn't have said it better. Well, obviously I can't say it better, but it was really well said. I wish I could find that quote. But anyways, to me, pricing is just another form of speech. We use words to describe things and to describe the world around us, and we use prices to describe our feelings on value. And society bids and creates prices to reveal the prices of things through society. It's to me, it's just another form of speech. And do we try to control the flow of money to root out bad actors, which then affects our speech or our ability to create free prices? I mean, you could say, the government, by manipulating prices and manipulating interest rates, are manipulating what society is telling the world to produce or not produce. And okay, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too far, but oh my God, I did go too far down the rabbit hole. What am I talking about? And so, because I view this similarly with money, I think that eventually this idea that the government can and should and will control all ports and all movement of money, I don't know if that can survive, not only because philosophically I think it has problems when you start looking at money as speech, but technically I'm not sure it's gonna, I mean, I don't think it's possible. We now have decentralized networks that are gonna have privacy, and I don't think it's possible now. And also, before we freak out about that, you know, for thousands of years all speech was private. Not, you know, for all of history all speech was private, right? Until we had all this, until we had the internet and maybe phones, I don't know, you know. But speech was always private, and most financial transactions were private. I mean, accounting itself is a relatively new invention, you know, historically, right? So, I mean, I don't know how they used to collect taxes. That might be interesting to figure out. But anyways, you know, privacy is not just for criminals. And some people actually are curious about this, because one thing to understand is, like with Bitcoin, if I say, hey, send me, or I say, hey, send me $5, if I give you, or you know my public address, you can see how much money I have. You can see all the transactions that were going in and out of that account once you have the public address. You can see everything and follow the trails. There are not any names attached to it, but there's ways, and it's sort of like, it's not just, privacy is not just for criminals. Uh-oh, they're coming to get me. Okay. And I don't think, and technologically, I don't think we can stop it, because people want privacy. The technology is there, and they're building it, and I don't know. It's coming. I think that's all I wanted to talk about. Hopefully I didn't forget anything there. And so let me just say a little bit about ICOs, which is, so first of all, can I just say, like Ethereum, right? Let's just think of Ethereum. Had an ICO 4 years ago. If you bought Ethereum in the ICO, you did well. If you bought it 2 months after the ICO, you did well. If you bought it a year after the ICO, you did well. If you bought it at any point other than a month ago, you're up a lot. Okay? So, what's the fascination with being the first to buy it on an exchange? Keep in mind, that's not even the first to buy it. You can get in before it goes on the exchanges. But what is this fascination with having to be the first one? And so, just to tie this into with the whole government thing, I mean, there's a lot of shady characters in the ICO space, and the government, you know, sort of looking into that, and I think that's, you know, I would be careful there, because there's a lot of shadiness, and the government is looking there, and they're cracking down, probably gets harder and harder, and I would be careful. But just, you know, I don't think you're missing out that much if you kind of lay low on the ICOs, because, like I said, so what is the benefit of getting in at the ICO? There's two possible benefits. One is that you're early, but we're early anyways. I talked about this in another video. I hate to repeat myself, but one idea is to be early, but I'm not worried about that. You can see my other video about ICOs. And also, if you love it, usually 3 to 5 months later, it's cheaper than the day it gets listed on an exchange. And sometimes even cheaper than the discounts and all that. But so you know how many emails I've received? I mean, I receive multiple per day of people offering to pay me to talk about their ICO. So how many of the videos that you see promoting ICOs are from people who've been paid? And when people do an ICO, if you're doing an ICO, it is in your interest to promote it as much as possible, to hype it up. So at the ICO day is peak hype day. That's not the best time to buy. And who are the best hypers? Probably the shady characters put all of their energy into the hyping. And, you know, a lot of these popular ICOs it's, you know, and people talk about pump and dump. Oh, I want to do pump and dump, and they think like it's a real thing, like it's a good idea. When they do the pump, it's, first of all, they get these tokens, and the founders get them for free, and then the big promoters, people with big followings on YouTube and Facebook and stuff, they get shares for free. So they don't even have to pump. Once it gets listed on the exchange, they're in the money. So from day one, because they get them for free, they get the shares for free. A lot of that going on. A lot of shady business. Hard to figure out. I would be careful. And it's just that's one place the government is sort of not playing. I mean, they're trying to play nice, but they're sort of working hard to crack down on some of the shady characters there. So that's my spiel on regulation for the day. Another sunset with you here. Actually, it's not sunset, it's behind the cloud, but that's kind of cool, huh?